first big topic, gents, January transfer window. It's going on and there's a lot going on, right? Which top 6 club has done the best business? That's the question I want to chuck out to you guys, because Leandro Trossard to Arsenal, Gakpo to Liverpool, João Felix, Modric, Madueke, Badiashile to Chelsea, Weghorst to United. Some big moves to the top 6. Some clubs have been busier than others, right, Nick? But when we look at it, some really interesting transfers. And some teams you're thinking, hey, do you really need to do that business? Are you panicking because it's January and you're struggling? But others, you're like, that's a smart bit of business. So which top 6 team for you in the Premier League has done the best business so far? Because we still got a couple of weeks left.
Yeah, it's Chelsea with a gigantic asterisk, because I wish I knew what they were doing. And that's not to say they don't know what they're doing, but I certainly haven't figured it out. And maybe you guys can give me a little clue.
No, we haven't.
I love the Gakpo signing for Liverpool, but they were walked into needing to do that. And Weghorst, I think United was walked into needing to do that by Ronaldo, well, at least being uncovered as losing his mind, if not straight up losing his mind. I like Arsenal for Trossard, but I just keep going back to Chelsea, as they have brought in some players that really fascinate me. I might say his name wrong, Joe. He's an Englishman, so you can correct me. Looking at the advanced stats on Madueke, looks like that's a Sancho type of guy, a Sancho potential sort of young Englishman. He has everything in his locker. And like I said, the advanced stats on what he's doing in the Netherlands with that Eredivisie grain of salt attached to it. I love the signing of him. He is very exciting.
Absolutely. I think he'll be really good. And it was going to chuck up some questions for Chelsea's current attackers, which we're going to talk about in a few. But Andy, Nick mentioned it there. Chelsea, none of us were really sure what they're doing. They're buying players like it's going out of fashion. In fairness to them, they had a lot of injuries. So maybe, it's not just a short-term thing for them, but it's probably accelerated some of the business that they were going to do in the summer. They've had to bring that forward a little bit. But I do like, if you're Arsenal, just adding someone like Trossard seems like a very savvy pick, someone who can just operate in all attacking areas, wide areas. Is happy probably just being at Arsenal to be a backup to Martinelli and Saka and can slot in when needed. But yeah, it's been a bit slow for the bigger teams, and but there is some good business, and maybe some teams that need to do some business. So who's done the best business for you?
Yeah, on Chelsea, I think they are, and you bring up a good point, Joe, moving the business 6 months forward. We're seeing the next, I think, Chelsea team, whether it's for Graham Potter or the next potential manager, being built. I think this January, it's been realized, whether by Todd Bowley, whether by Graham Potter, whether somebody else within the club, that there is a big squad overhaul that's required with this group. Because one, it's very, very expensive, not just in terms of transfer fees, but the wages that are on the books there. And they will have to move some of those players on. They'll have a few players coming up out of contract, I think, within the next year or so. And so that will help just a little bit, but they have to get younger. And I think that was the number one key focus for them in this transfer window. You go out and you bring in Badiashile, who is pretty widely regarded as one of the best center backs across Europe. And you hope that he can lock down one of those positions, because it's kind of been a revolving door alongside Thiago Silva for a couple of years. And even at his age, how long can you rely on him as well? So there's just a lot of questions about this Chelsea team currently. So I think they've addressed them fairly well for the medium and long term. I just don't know how quickly you can expect these players to come into the Premier League mid-season, into a new team with a coach who's already still trying to teach his system and philosophy, and expect them to pick it up that quickly. So I see a lot more struggles for Chelsea this season, even if they continue to go out and make signings, and even if they are good signings that I think over the long term, prove to be good business.
Nick, I guess most US men's national team fans will be thinking, what does this mean for Christian Pulisic? That's a fair comment, right? When they're bringing in Modric, they're bringing in Madueke, they're bringing in João Felix, who can obviously on loan, but looked really sharp in his debut before he got sent off. And he can operate, and those players can all operate in the same kind of areas as Christian Pulisic. And Graham Potter recently, we know Pulisic's out for a little bit of a knee injury, but he said that there is no chance of him leaving this month. He'll be out past the end of the transfer window, and there was never any consideration about him leaving anyway. So it's kind of, a little bit of an insight there into how Chelsea rate Christian Pulisic. For me, he had a really good couple of games, right, after the World Cup when the Premier League kicked off again. He was starting for Chelsea. so often, as he has always done in Chelsea over the years, got a run in the team, and then he's broken down and had an injury. But do we see him having a long-term future? Because we now know he's got less than 18 months left on his contract, right? And then you see all these left-sided wingers and attacking midfielders arriving. And for Pulisic, for Sterling, for Aubameyang, for Ziyech, kind of the writing's on the wall a little bit, right? That Chelsea seem to want to go with a totally different group of attackers. So yeah, in a long-winded way, what do these transfers mean for Christian Pulisic?
Well, I'm not positive because he's still at the age profile where he's not at his best. He can be an older guy there. He can be I don't want to say a secondary piece, but he can be a piece that contributes. I still, going back to what we don't know about Chelsea real quickly, this is, if there's not, there are a million reasons to wish that there wasn't a war in Ukraine. But for one thing, Rudiger and Christensen might still be there. Rudiger would almost certainly still be there. And if they're still there, is Tuchel still there, right? And now that we have seen the change, if you brought Graham Potter in over the summer, does he sanction Lukaku leaving? Does he sanction Timo Werner leaving? Does he feel like... So I feel like all of Chelsea, the takeover included, has no idea what it's doing. And I bet there are players like Pulisic, who are thinking to themselves, man, if I could just get 2 months under this new guy, this could still be my club. So it all depends on how the player feels. And he, I don't think, has been very straightforward, and he doesn't have to be with us. I don't feel like I know what he wants. Andy, do you?
Yeah, I think he wants to play. I think he wants to play regularly. And I think he knows the writing's on the wall. He's done this with 3 managers now in a row, and it's been almost 2 years, I guess, since Tuchel took over, and that experience was what it was. And he didn't get opportunities early under Potter. He had to go to the World Cup and play pretty well, get a couple of opportunities, and of course he gets hurt again. It's just, at what point, I guess my question would be, at what point during his time at Chelsea has Christian Pulisic either been happy, or should he have been happy with the way things were going at Chelsea? He had about a year, maybe a little more at the very beginning. It started pretty well, but since then it's just been a lot of, stop, start. And I think I'm to the point now where I think for the betterment of his career, he's got to find his level, if you will. And I think it's pretty clear that that's not as a starter or a star, certainly for a club of Chelsea's caliber. And that's fine. He can go somewhere else and be, a very key important player who plays every single game. And I think that at this point, that is what he needs.
And obviously at this point, he's not going to leave in January. Graham Potter said it there. That's not the plan. And I don't think it really impacts his transfer value between having 18 months left on his contract and a year on his contract. Maybe a little bit. But I think at this point, Chelsea are like, okay, we'll just keep him around. He'll come back fit. He'll be a good bit, a good piece of the jigsaw late in the season if he's back by, late February or March like they think he's going to be. But yeah, I think it probably is time for him to move on, like Andy said. But at the same time, it seemed like Graham Potter rated him and wanted to keep him around and in the starting lineup. But again, is that down to all the injuries that Chelsea have had? I don't know. There's a lot of question and figure out, not just for Christian Pulisic, but for pretty much every single player at Chelsea, every single staff member. And it starts at the top. So they're still figuring it out. But for Christian Pulisic, I think we all agree that this summer would be a perfect time to move on. He's tried the Chelsea thing. He hasn't really failed, I would say, but his body has failed him at times more so, and maybe the managerial chopping and changing of so many different coaches and styles coming in and out is really what's...
what did we say when he went there? We said that was the thing right there, is the instability, the uncertainty of 3 weeks from now, let alone 3 years from now, when you sign a 4.5 or 5 year contract. You have no way of knowing, and that was the biggest risk.
Fun question, Joe, because I literally can't remember when he was purchased, and it happened in January, and they said, "Oh, he's going to come." Who was the manager? Because remember, he was like, "Was it Sarri?" It was Maurizio Sarri, and he basically said when asked, "Who? Whatever, some guy who I'm going to get to know in June." Like that was the story. Yeah, Andy's right.
And he never got to know him because Frank Lampard was in by that time. So yeah, there we go. Okay, let's finish this segment quickly, Nick, by asking you, which giant do you think needs to splash some cash late in the window? We're looking at a team who could maybe, Man United, dare I say, if they beat Arsenal this weekend, then potentially they could be in the title race? Do they go and get a final piece that they need? Or is it someone like Liverpool? Do they really need that central midfielder now to spend big late in the window and then give themselves a chance of being in the top 4 if they get a good result against Chelsea this weekend? So it's interesting to look at that, right? How results go over the next week to 10 days is maybe going to set up how owners and directors think about the final days of the window. And also we have to remember, I've mentioned 2 teams there, Man United and Liverpool, who are openly up for sale or looking to sell big chunks of the club. So that's part of maybe their lack of transfer activity so far in January, right? So there's a lot going on.
Yeah. Quickly, the answer for me is you're right in mentioning Liverpool, because they definitely need to sort out what their midfield of the future is. But if they're not able to get Bellingham, and all signs point to no, then I'll bring up the next giant, and it's Newcastle United. They have learned what they are when Bruno Guimaraes plays, and him potentially missing time even a game or 2 is going to show them. I saw them linked very briefly with Milinkovic-Savic, and if they're going to take a shot now, it's the shot that says, all right, Guimaraes is out and we're not dead in the water, because they are overachieving right now. Make no mistake about it. They're still in the discussion, though, because of Tottenham, Liverpool, and Chelsea underachieving.
Yeah, that's a great point there, right, Andy? So anytime that you can find yourself in this situation for Newcastle, you've got to grasp it and make the most of it. And now is the time really to go for it for them. And on Arsenal, quickly, transfer. I mean, we talked about Trossard at the top there. Do they need anything else to help them? Is now a time maybe to go and get another striker that could really, Jesus seems like he's going to be out longer than we expected to start with. So can they rely on Eddie Nketiah to chip in with goals every week?
Yeah, I think they're fine up top. The thing I worry about with Arsenal, and this is not an attempted jinx or reverse jinx or anything, I promise.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Definitely is.
They are, it's not. They are a Thomas Partey injury away from, I don't know if they can hang on all the way to the end of the season. If he's out a month, if he's out 2 months, and he has a history of some fairly medium to long-term injuries. If he gets one, they could be in real trouble, because I think a lot of what he's doing is holding together what's an okay defense. The possession and the attack, I think, is their number 1 defense, though. And if that defense comes under pressure, I don't know how it's going to hold up.
And I think when it comes to Tottenham rounding off the big 6 chat, then obviously they're in a really bad situation. Andy Zyrol said it all there. Yeah. Antonio Conte, his contract being up, him talking out about not really. It doesn't seem like he wants to be there anymore. I mean, let's just tell it how it is. So I think for Tottenham now, they're just going to try and get to the end of the season, be in and around the top 4 race, and we'll see what happens with them. But we'll see what happens with the rest of the transfer window, gents. And head over to Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com. Everyone will have the latest news, transfer information around deadline day on January 31st. We'll have you cover with a show from all of us here at PST. So we're looking forward to that. And as we build up a crescendo of transfers, I assume, in the final week or so of the window, and then we get to the climax there on deadline day, I think we're going to see a lot of business, especially at the top 6 teams, but also with the relegation candidates at the other end of the table. I think there's going to be a lot of teams down there spending a lot of cash, the likes of Everton, Leeds, West Ham, Southampton, etc. You name it. There's a lot of teams very close to each other. So it's going to be an intriguing final week and a half of the deadline day and transfer window. So we'll keep you covered here at PST.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. For even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you over there.